Somewhere in America right now, a family is writing a check for $35,000 for 1 year, for one kid, just to go to school. And almost everyone watching that family assumes the school is getting rich off it. It isn't. Here's the part nobody tells you. Most private schools in this country run on margins so thin that a school with a full waitlist, every single seat sold, can still end the year underwater. One bad admission cycle, one lawsuit, one letter from an accreditor. That's the whole margin, gone. So the real question isn't how do private schools make so much money? It's how do they survive at all? That's what we're breaking down. But first, you need to understand what you're actually buying when you pay that $35,000. Because it's not education. Stick with me here. This changes everything that follows. What parents are really paying for is a promise. Small classes, attention, a specific outcome for their kid. The classroom, the building, the teachers. That's just how the promise gets delivered. And every dollar the school spends either protects that promise or quietly chips away at it. Keep that idea in your back pocket. You're going to need it in about 10 minutes. So, let's follow the money, starting with how it comes in. Tuition is king. For most private schools, it's somewhere between 80 and 90% of total revenue, according to data from the National Association of Independent Schools. The rest is donations, a small trickle from an endowment if the school's lucky enough to have one, and what's called auxiliary revenue, summer camps, after-school care, renting the gym out on weekends. And here's surprise number one. That giant endowment most people picture, some sleeping pile of cash quietly spinning off income, that only exists at a small slice of schools. Most private schools are living paycheck to paycheck, except the paycheck is called tuition, and it resets every single September. No cushion, no safety net. Enrollment pays the bills, or nothing does. If stuff like this, the real numbers behind businesses that look simple from the outside, is the kind of thing you actually enjoy, go ahead and subscribe now. It just makes the rest of this hit different. Now here's where it actually gets interesting, because bringing the money in, that's the easy part. Where it goes is what decides whether this school is still open in 5 years. The single biggest expense at any private school isn't the building, it's the people. Salaries and benefits typically swallow 60 to 75% of the entire operating budget. Sit with that for a second. 3 out of every $4 that family paid, already spoken for, before a single light bulb gets changed, before a single textbook gets ordered. After payroll, you've got facilities and maintenance, insurance, which now means liability, property, and increasingly cyber insurance, accreditation fees just to keep the school's credentials valid, marketing to keep the enrollment pipeline from running dry, and financial aid. And financial aid is where a lot of new owners quietly walk into a wall. Many independent schools now hand back 15 to 25% of tuition revenue straight out the door as aid and scholarships. That's not a side charity project, that's load-bearing. A 500-student school isn't collecting full tuition from 500 families. It's a mix, full price here, deep discount there. And the entire model only survives if that mix gets planned for months in advance, not discovered halfway through the year when it's already too late to fix. Okay, so money comes in through tuition. Money goes out through payroll, buildings, insurance, and aid. What's actually left at the end? Let's put real numbers on it. I promise, it's simpler than it sounds. Picture a mid-sized private day school. 500 students. Average tuition, $18,000. Gross tuition revenue, $9 million. But 20% of those kids, 100 of them, are on financial aid, averaging a 50% discount. That's $900,000 handed straight back before the school spends a dime on anything. Real, usable revenue, about $8.1 million. Now the costs. 70 staff, averaging $75,000 each in fully loaded pay. Salary, benefits, taxes, all in. That's $5.25 million. Gone. Facilities and operations, $2 million a year. Lights, heat, repairs, insurance. Marketing and admissions, $250,000, because in a competitive market, you have to spend money just to keep the pipeline full. Total costs, $7.5 million. Net result, about $600,000 on $9 million in gross tuition. Call it a 7% margin. Solid, stable. Nowhere near the money machine most people imagine. But here's the number that should actually keep a school owner up at night. Drop enrollment by just 8%. 40 kids. That's it, 40. You can't fire a quarter of your teachers the week enrollment dips. The building still needs heat, the insurance bill doesn't care. Revenue falls to around $7.3 million. Costs barely move, still near $7.5 million. That school just went from $600,000 in profit to a loss. Same building, same teachers, same reputation on the sign out front. 40 families made a different choice, and the entire year flipped upside down. That's the real lesson of private school economics. It's not that the business doesn't work, it's that the margin for error is almost non-existent, and none of that risk is anywhere on the glossy brochure they hand you at the open house. And that fragility doesn't look the same everywhere. It shows up differently depending on what kind of school you're running. Take an elite boarding school. 500 to 900 kids, paying $50,000 to $70,000 a year. Sounds untouchable, right? Wrong. Often just as thin, sometimes thinner, because housing, feeding, and staffing a campus around the clock is brutally expensive. High revenue does not mean high margin here. Remember that one. A regional K-12 day school, the most common setup, 300 to 600 students, tuition between $14,000 and $25,000 is almost entirely tuition dependent. No endowment cushion. This is the version most exposed to a rough enrollment year. In a smaller Montessori or specialized school, maybe 100 to 250 kids, has lower overhead, sure, but a much lower ceiling too. Less room to absorb a bad year. Less room, period. 3 very different schools, same fragile skeleton underneath. Let's make this human for a second, because behind every one of those numbers is somebody's decision and somebody's fear. There's a pattern you can find echoed in local news across the country. Small, independent, and religious schools, decades old, seemingly rock solid, closing within a single admission cycle after enrollment slips just a bit below break even. Not because the education got worse, because the math simply stopped working, and nobody outside the building noticed until the closure announcement. Now picture a hypothetical owner. Call her the founder of a 150-student school. 3 straight years of breaking even. She feels like she's built something that'll last. Then one bad cycle costs her 20 students. 20. Suddenly, she's not debating whether to fix the roof. She's deciding which teachers she has to let go, and whether there's a next fall at all. That's the emotional core of this entire industry. Schools don't collapse because somebody made one bad call. They collapse because the model has almost zero room to absorb an ordinary bad year. And most owners don't find that out until it's already happening to them. So beyond enrollment, what else is quietly stalking every private school owner? Regulatory risk. Lose accreditation, and it can be catastrophic, so compliance has to be a calendar, not a scramble. Legal exposure. Discrimination or disciplinary disputes can turn into 6-figure litigation fast, so policies need real legal review, not a template from 2004. Facility risk. Old buildings mean accidents happen. Insurance and reserve funds aren't optional, they're survival gear. Reputational risk. One incident, one video, can go viral and dent enrollment for years. Schools without a crisis plan ready end up writing one in real time, under pressure, and that never goes well. And funding policy risk. A single change to a state's voucher or education savings account program can rewrite the entire competitive map overnight. None of these alone is a death sentence, but stack 2 or 3 in the same year, and you get exactly the kind of collapse we just walked through in the math. So here's the question this whole video's been building to. If the margins are this thin, why does anyone still want to own one of these? Because when it works, and most of the time it actually does, it's one of the most stable, mission-driven businesses you can build. Predictable tuition revenue, a community that genuinely believes in what you're doing. Real impact on real kids every single day. That 7% margin isn't flashy, but it's dependable on one condition. The owner never forgets exactly how thin it really is. Because here's the truth this entire video comes down to. The building was never the business. The enrollment pipeline is the business. The financial aid budget, planned a year ahead instead of discovered in a panic is the business. The reserve fund quietly sitting there for the year enrollment dips that nobody talks about at the open house. That's the business. Every owner who's ever run one of these schools successfully learned that lesson early. Every owner who's watched one collapse learned it far too late, when it was already too expensive to fix. So I'll leave you with this. Would you take on that kind of risk for a 7% margin and a mission you actually believe in? Comment yes or no and tell me why. I read every single one. And if you want more of these breakdowns, the real numbers behind businesses that look simple until you actually open the books, subscribe. This channel does exactly this every single week. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next one.